that we need to be focused on for Memorial Day. Thank you guys for everybody that's out there online tuned in. You're tuned into The Divide with Marcus C. Williams, and we are here in your ear having the conversations that you need to hear. Hit the like button, hit the share button. It doesn't cost you nothing to hit the like or share and help us get this message out there. We are the #1 conservative talk show in upstate New York and the rest of New York. Let's make it the world. Okay. So hit like, share, subscribe, and definitely drop a little comment in the comment and be part of the conversation. And we'll try to pop your comment up on the screen and you can take part in being part of the different discourse and the different things that you'd like to talk about also. Now, let's jump into it. We're talking about how Memorial Day is one of the most important holidays, but often very much so overlooked in our nation. And it's true. And you have to start to ask yourself, why is it overlooked? Why is it such an important holiday and it's overlooked? Well, Memorial Day, most people just kind of think, well, it's a holiday for barbecuing and grilling and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day being for those that are still alive, Memorial Day being for those who passed, you know? And a lot of people don't really get or understand the difference between the two. I see some comments coming in there. I appreciate you. Drop some comments. Every comment helps a lot to make it get out there more, even if it's just an American flag or a smiley face or whatever. So what we've got right now is one of the strongest and best nations in the whole world. I love my country. There is nothing that anybody can tell me bad about America, right? But just because I love my country so much, it doesn't mean that I don't know or recognize a lot of sordid stuff that our country has done. But thankfully, we've had so many people that believe in our nation so much that they were willing to give the full measure in combat just to preserve our fabric of society. And today is the day in which we celebrate them. But you know, a lot of people right now inside our own country are trying to tear down our own country from the inside. They hate our country, but they're American citizens. Why are these people allowed to go on and say, oh, wave foreign flags? Because that's a big thing. People want to live in America, waving foreign flags and demanding things like death to America. How dare you? The fact that they're not immediately taken and thrown into prison is unacceptable. How do you live in America, our naturalized citizen or our American-born citizen, and you hate our nation so much? It's 200 and some odd other countries in the world. Nobody's stopping you from going. Go and get. Look at all of the people who die on their way to try to get to America, right? Like clearly, America is a bastion. Okay, America is a sanctuary in a world that is in upheaval and topsy-turvy. But people come here or are from here and they do not respect our nation. They do not care about our country. It's absolutely despicable. And all of them that are foreign or want to wave a foreign flag, send them back immediately. No lines, no waiting. They got to go. You hate our country, but you're here. Bye. See you later. You know, and people will say, oh, well, you know, you can't say stuff like that. You can't be against illegal aliens and stuff like that. Why not? There is a legal process for people to come into this country, right? And I'll put this out there. If you violate the legal process to come in this country, or if you're here on an overstayed visa, if you follow me, you know, guys know I'm very big on kicking out everybody that's here on an overstayed visa because that shows you that they knew how to do it right and they just didn't care at all. So here's the deal. If you are here illegally, you got to go, you know, and look at how many people are here that are naturalized citizens now that have green cards or they're actual full citizens. I use air quotes there. And they're preaching against our nation, or they want to change our constitution or change our way of life or change our culture in our nation. And they want to make it like the country that they came from. How dare you? What an offense. Go back to your country. If your country was so great the way that it was, you'd still be there. Okay. But no, you want to come over here and change our stuff, our way of life to the way that you had it and you want it from your homeland. Well, go back to your homeland. You know, you know how many people have fought and died to protect our nation on the mainland? You know, we've had the very great fortunateness and the blessing of the Lord our Father and the Son Jesus Christ go along with us for so many years, 250 years we're about to be at. And it's been a grateful thing that we've had very few in military engagements on American soil. We've been very lucky. And that's because of all of the people who went into the military to fight for our nation, to fight for our way of life. So everybody here that's out here disrespecting our nation, disrespecting our servicemen, and disrespecting our country, they need to be removed or they need to be put in prison. Okay. And I know people will say, well, Marcus, you can't just put people in prison for freedom of speech and stuff like that. Maybe not. And I would never expect anybody to. But I would 100% say that anybody that's here is a naturalized citizen or that came from a foreign country that's speaking against our culture, our way of life, or out here flying a foreign flag should immediately be denaturalized and sent back. No line, no waiting. Okay? Very much so, directly with immediance and expedience. Okay? Then we've got these other people over here that are American citizens, right? Natural born, out here flying flags of places like Palestine, right? And as we talk about places like Palestine, these pro-Palestine protesters, okay, what even is Palestine, right? Let's ask that. Do they know what Palestine is? They don't know what Palestine is. Do they know the history of the area there? They don't know the history of the area there. You know, they can't tell you about the Persian Empire. They can't tell you about the Ottoman Empire. They can't tell you about British Mandate Palestine. They can't tell you about anything. But they're out here waving flags of foreign nations and serving foreign assets because, you know, it makes them feel good and fuzzy on the inside. Anything that they can do to push people against our own government. Okay, bet. Drink water, stay hydrated, y'all. Okay, bet. Let's say that that's what you want to do, right? Let's say that that's what you believe. Okay. We got a whole bunch of people right now in our country that are serving foreign entities, right? That are serving foreign purposes, that are serving the elites that they so much so claim that they're supposed to be against, right? Who does it benefit to create division in our nation, talking about you hate our nation and you want to tear our nation down? Okay, bet. Let's say that they got what they wanted. Let's say that they were able to destroy America tomorrow, right? Who benefits? Cui bono, right? That's how they say it in legal term. Who benefits? Well, you have to ask yourself who benefits. It would only be our foreign adversaries and those who hate our country, our way of life, our culture, and our people. So why would you want that? Why would you want that? Why would you even express some concept of that? And that's coming from me, who I believe that the tea has been spoiled for too long and the whole teapot needs to be poured out. Okay? That's how, ask me how I really feel. But these people out here are talking about, oh, well, we need to get rid of the American government or whatever the case is for foreign interests. You think that if we had a war, I'm using air quotes if you're on the radio with us, a war and a civil war in America or whatever the case is, that wouldn't be a cue for our enemies abroad to come in and interfere with our affairs? It's not like we don't have a history of us having internal conflict in our nation and then foreigners coming and getting involved in our stuff. More so now than ever, especially when we've got foreign groups like the Russians or like the Chinese, especially the Chinese, that have so much to gain by disrupting our way of life, our culture, everything to do with our nation. If America fell tomorrow, the group of people that would benefit the most would be China. Drink water, stay hydrated, y'all. Hit the like button, hit the share button, It doesn't cost you anything. Help us get this conversation out there. Help us have the important conversations that need to be had. Now, as we're talking about these people that support these foreign interests, okay, and I'm all of the foreign interests. I don't care. If it's not the United States of America, I'm not for none of it. Period, point blank. But I bring this up because we also have these illegal aliens here, right? And some of the illegal aliens are more patriotic than the freaking people that are here the right way, or naturalized citizens, or even actual nature-born citizens. Maybe we should do a swap, right? Maybe we should do a swap. If you're foreign, you want to incorporate yourself into the United States, you want to assimilate and all of that stuff, we'll let one of you in, and we send one of our people over there to switch with you as far as nationality goes. You know, like, it's crazy. It's crazy. I love me some new Americans because a lot of them are more patriotic and love America more than a lot of these people that are from this country. And that is a very serious and severe issue. And it's very seldomly talked about or even addressed. Now, when we start talking about this, you guys know I'm very strong on deporting all the illegal aliens. Okay, all of them, every last one of them. I don't want none of them here. Okay, why? Because they're competing with us in an economy that continues to get more and more competitive and be shrunk as far as the labor force every single month. Okay, yes, there are jobs being created. Yes, more jobs are coming out and stuff like that. But how many people are there out there that are looking for jobs, or that are underemployed, or that just don't even know that those jobs are out there, or feel so spurned by the market that they stop looking for jobs? Think about this. If you go online right now, I know it won't take you very long to find an article or people on the internet, on social media, doing videos about, oh, they've got their bachelor's degree or their master's degree, and they can't find a job. They put in 300-400 applications. They can't find a job. They've been searching for a job for 6 months, a year, you know, master degree level people working at Starbucks and stuff like that. Like, what are we doing, right? And we want to let low-skilled, not assimilated people into our country to compete in a workforce that is already very challenging and fastly being updated by AI and by different things like mechanization, right? Like, that's where we are right now. And with the what do you call them? The central budget, the Congressional Budget Office, talking about by 2030, 2035, rough time frame, we're looking at losing about 30% of the jobs in the job market because of automation and AI. And I believe that that's a low number. I think the number is probably more like 50%. So we're preparing for a massive shift in our economy, and people don't even realize what's going on. And when you try to point stuff like that out, people are like, no, we need the illegal aliens. Let them stay. No people are illegal. Nobody's illegal on foreign land. Get out. Get out. If you really feel like that, y'all, and I can't stand me no land back people. Now, I'm American Indian, okay? So I can't stand me no land back people. If you really care about land back, give the land back. Get out your house, go give it to indigenous people. You know what I'm saying? And I use the term loosely when I talk about indigenous people, because we know, especially where my people come from, there's a lot of these $5 Indians. People look whiter than the driven snow, look more European than the Queen of England. Not the current one, Victoria. You know what I'm saying? So, or Queen Elizabeth either. You know, so this is a serious problem. This is a serious, serious problem. Hit that like button, hit the share button. It don't cost you nothing. We got a fundraiser coming up for the station on May 31st. Definitely. Where did they put the paper? Somebody moved the paper out of the way. I don't know where the paper is for it. Anyway, I'd tell you more about it, but I don't see the paper for it. Sorry about that. Anyway, so if you want to help the show, right on the sides over there, you can help support the show online or down there, depending on whether you're vertical or horizontal. And if you want to support the station, please do. You can do it by going on RochesterFreeRadio.com or going on Patreon and Rochester Free Radio. Now, Here's the deal with what we've got going on with this massive shift that's coming in the economy. When you say, oh, we want to send illegal aliens back and stuff like that, people will call you all types of names except a child of God, right? Now, when they say these types of things, they just say that because it either makes them feel morally superior, feel morally virtuous, okay, or it's because they're being paid or they've been conditioned that that's what's righteous. But they don't see all the other countries that are out there clamoring to kick out all of these illegal aliens that are in their country, right? And what's one group that people always talk about all the time, right? Oh, the Africans, right? Now, mind you, Africa is a whole continent, and I've never heard anybody say, oh, the South Americans, which is kind of crazy to me. Or, oh, the Europeans, so all the Asians, but however, we do have the Chinese, which are their own huge problem themselves. And then we have the Indians, which are their own huge problem themselves. But most people don't even consider the Indian subcontinent part of Asia. And that's its whole own problem, the geography in America. But all of these Africans, right? They talk about the Africans right now. The big hot topic is the Somalians, right? Okay, so let me be very clear. Not only is Africa like 54 different countries? Africa also has an illegal immigration problem. Right now in South Africa and a couple of other countries down there, they're pitching a fit, tearing stuff up, having massive riots about illegal aliens in their countries. These are African nations. And they're like, we don't want any more illegal aliens in our country. South Africa is one of the biggest, they're having some of the biggest riots right now, which it's not covered on the news, right? Because why would they talk about illegal aliens in South Africa and South Africa trying to kick the illegal aliens out? Why would they talk about that? They don't want to talk about that because, oh, no, Africans can't be against illegal immigration. Bogus. Bogus. And it's not the only country that's like that, that's having those type of issues. If you move over to South America, there are other countries like that are having those type of problems. Bolivia, Uruguay, Paraguay, a couple of other ones down there as well. And as a matter of fact, Bolivia's got its whole own thing going on right now. They're not doing too well. I don't know what's up with that. Hopefully they can manage through that. But take a second, hit the like button, hit the share button. It don't cost you nothing. Hit subscribe or follow, depending on what platform you are, and share this out there. Drop a comment and be part of the conversation. Try to see if we can pop any of these comments up. Oh, all of these are on Kick. So the Kick comments don't always pop up, but if y'all keep dropping them, I'll figure out how to get those up there. Oh, we got some Twitch comments. The Twitch comments don't allow me to pop those up either. Anyway, keep commenting. I'll figure out how to get those up there. But if you're on YouTube or Facebook, whatever, comment on there for sure. Now, as we talk about South Africa and how they're raving against all these illegal aliens, these are people that are African. Talking about they don't want illegal aliens from other African countries. How come we can't talk about that? They call them xenophobic. They call them all types of hateful names and stuff like that because they're South African and they don't want all these foreigners coming into their country. They don't want these illegal other people from other African countries coming into their country. But we don't talk about that. We don't see that on the news. I encourage you to go look it up. Listen, don't believe me because I'm saying it. Believe me because I'm telling you, I'm going out my way to tell you, go look it up. For real. And people won't talk about that. Well, why won't they talk about the illegal aliens in the different African countries that they're trying to stop? Because it would change the narrative. And they don't want that. They only want you to think one way. Then here in America, they'll try to shove the illegal aliens down your throat like they do to us being Black Americans all the time. Talking about, oh, well, there you have a similar issue to all of these foreigners and all these illegal. No, we don't. No, we don't. Not one illegal alien or none foreigners ever came to the aid of Black Americans or the plight of Black Americans. None of them care about us because, again, we're American. And they don't care about Americans. They care about themselves. And I get it, right? They want to come here. They want a better life for themselves. They want a better life for their people. And that's who they care about. Themselves, not the American people. Coming here from a foreign country is a completely thing about selfishness. That's all it's about. Coming here from another country is about selfishness. Nobody has ever come from another country talk about, yes, I want to improve the quality of life of the everyday American. Nobody's ever said that. Nobody's ever said that. Okay? But still and yet, we're supposed to, oh, yes, just let all the illegals. No. Send them back. And that's what South Africa's on right now. They're protesting, they're rioting. They've got some of the most serious riots that they've had in decades over illegal immigration in South Africa right now. Okay? And that's on the African continent. So make it make sense to me. Now, we've got a whole bunch of other issues that are coming up right now in our nation and across the world. We've got the thing with Iran that's going on, where it's causing massive oil shortages to many parts of the country. I mean, not our country, but many parts of the world. And a lot of people don't really get or understand what the issue is there, right? So to keep it real short and contrite, the issue is we don't get a lot of oil from there. So while we see some high gas prices and stuff like that, we're not being hit as hard as many other countries. Like I mentioned Bolivia earlier. Oh man, Bolivia is getting slaughtered, which is interesting because Bolivia is right next to Venezuela. So you really have to ask yourself, is that intentional or what's the situation there? Well, again, you got to play your part and play your role if you're in the Western Hemisphere, and they wanted to align themselves with China. Matter of fact, I think they're on their new president again, or no, that's Peru. There's just so much upheaval going on in South America right now. It's hard to keep track. Drink water, stay hydrated, drop a comment. So as we've got this whole thing going over there with this blockade of Iran and stuff like that, and they can't get oil out and their oil tankers are all filled up and the oil stuck there, and soon they're going to have to start burning off oil, which probably should be real soon. I'm fake looking at a watch that I don't have on my arm if you're on the radio and you can't see. But it's serious what's going on over there, because if they have to start burning off oil, it's really hard to restart oil production after that. So that is a very serious turning point. And we also have the issue with China, where China right now is really light on oil because they get a lot of oil from Iran, from Venezuela, and now they can't access that oil anymore. So what's going on? So China's suffering. Now, China is one of the big major production hubs in the world. So how is that going to go for the rest of the world if China starts to get short on oil? So China's going to have to get some very serious and very quick reorganization strategy for their economics and for their production, right? They're a production powerhouse in the world right now. And that's problematic if you don't have any energy to fill that production powerhouse. Then they also have a bazillion different people in their country, right? China's got the second biggest population right next to India, right? Couple billion people. It's a lot of people to be low on energy, to be low on fuel. And then you have to think about the not just the manufacturing itself, but the delivery, right? So many different fueled ships that need to be fueled, right? All types of different things like that. And then we've got this whole problem with the issues with, I guess you would say, airline fuel right now, again, because of the constraints on oil and stuff like this, which is kind of the reason why we need to bring back production of these things to the United States and create more refineries in the United States, because that's the only way that we really can actually make sure that if anything happens on a larger scale in the world in the future, that we are insulated from any of the outside issues. Look at what happened during COVID and the international pipeline of shipping got knocked down, right? And the craziest thing is it was a Chinese shipping vessel that got stuck sideways in the Suez Canal called the Evergreen, which everybody seems to forget about, that really tore up the market for everybody in the world, because a lot of trade and stuff goes through the Suez Canal. And then everybody had to go around Africa and that was its whole own problem because it's like weeks extra out of the way. But when we don't have these levels of conversation, then we don't see the extent of the impact of what's going on. Now, this is a bit of an issue because there's other things going on, right? Like we've got the whole issue with what's happening here. Let's I want to talk about something on the federal level, but let's take a second. I want to talk about my town real quick, okay? So just today, this morning in the city of Rochester, New York, where I live, I love my city, but it's wild and crazy out here. And today we found out that there was a guy who was allegedly, and I'm not able to completely confirm this because I've heard different conflicting reports, but there was a guy who either was a driving instructor or was not a driving instructor and was masquerading as this one girl's driving instructor. And apparently he had a history of working with the school district as well. And he pulled up to this girl and said, yeah, he's her driving instructor, and then ended up raping her, right? And there's a whole bunch of craziness to that. And if you look at him, he's got quite a few different priors. And apparently he was out on bail. Again, I cannot completely verify all of this information at this time because it's still forthcoming. But he raped a girl masquerading as her driving instructor, and that's crazy. That's terrible. But this is what's going on here. And I don't know where this dude is from, okay, originally, but he doesn't look American to me. So this is a whole nother problem against about preferential treatment of people that aren't actually American. Somebody's going to take issue with what I just said, but I don't honestly give a daggone. The fact of the matter is that we have a criminal justice system, which is just that, a justice system for criminals in New York, but not for anybody that is a victim of crime. In New York, we have laws like bail reform and raise the age that have made it so that criminals do not need to fear anything happening to them or any type of issues actually falling upon them for their criminal acts. So like what it says in the Bible, if you're not going to punish a criminal act, it's Ecclesiastes 8:11, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you don't expeditiously punish a crime, then it's fully set in the heart of man to do evil. So this is where we are right now in New York State and so many other blue states where they've got things like bail reform that just lets anybody out on cashless bail. And apparently that guy that raped the girl has got $5,000 bail. That doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't make any sense to me. We'll see what else comes out if it ends up getting redone and denied or whatever the case is, because there's public outcry right now about that. Like, how do you rape somebody and then get out of jail? Oh, wait, bail reform. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is what we're dealing with in blue states and Democrat-run states, and people don't want to acknowledge it. They'll be like, oh, well, what about the Republicans? The Republicans didn't sign those bills. The Republicans didn't sign those bills, and that's the problem with this teamification that's in our nation right now. They try to say, oh, well, if you're a Republican or you think this way, then you're no good. Later for that. Is what's being said truth? And we've gotten so far into this teamification of our society that people don't even care about truth anymore. I was talking to a lady earlier, she was like, oh, you just want to lock up criminals. Yes, I just want to lock up criminals. What the heck is wrong with you? Of course I want to lock up criminals. Duh. Who's stupid? Okay, must be you, because if you allow criminals to run amok, whose neighborhoods do you think that they're impacting the most? The underserved communities, okay? The communities that have the majority of the crime are usually working class or neighborhoods that are in poverty. So you want all these criminals out running about, running amok? Whose neighborhoods are they impacting the most? Those who can least afford it. And over the weekend, there was this report of this old lady getting beat up at the bus stop. There was another old man that was robbed at knife point. Okay. And this is what's going on here because there are no consequences. But Democrats don't want to talk about that. Why won't the Democrats talk about the consequences of no consequences? Last week we had the beach. It was nice out. We had the Lilac Festival. It was nice out. A whole bunch of people decided that they wanted to act a raw riot, show their behind, and act like they ain't had no home training, and they was acting a fool, making our whole city look bad. And then, of course, we got on national news for and made to look bad because, you know, that's what people see. And then the mayor gets out there and trots out there and is like, oh, yeah, you know, we're not going to tolerate this. Aren't you, though? Because you've allowed the policies that the city council has put in place to make it so that anybody under, this is what it is, anybody that looks like they're under 25, they cannot physically engage with. Okay, they can't pepper spray them. They can't handcuff them. They can't physically engage with them in any other way. Okay, no, not tase them, nothing. Nothing. That's policy from city council. Okay, and the mayor's talking about, oh, well, you know, it's just some people. Lock them up, put their behinds in jail. You know, well, you know, it's because, you know, they're not behaving. Well, then why aren't they in jail? Why aren't they? They're calling a whole bad scene. That's clearly illegal what they're doing, the criminal acts of what they're doing, and they're not going to jail. Oh, wait, that's because of other laws from the state level, the raise the age laws, which essentially make it that anybody that's under 18 has basically blanket immunity to commit any crimes or any type of actions that they feel like, whether they're lawful or not. But we can't talk about that. The mayor won't say anything about that. The city council won't say anything about that. We only got one city council person that'll ever talk about any of that. You know, like, what is going on here? What is going on here? Because it would mean that they would have to hold accountable other Democrats. And they can't do that. They don't want to do that because they want to protect their positions. They don't care about our actual citizens. They care more about themselves, the positions that they hold, their families, and they care about your families. And as a matter of fact, right now, they care more about the illegal aliens than they care about you, because we got our congressmen and our city council people out here talking about, oh, we need to shelter all the illegal aliens. Not refugees, because we're a big hub for refugees too. That's a whole separate conversation. But not the refugees, the illegal aliens, right? And then they try to blanket statement it, oh, well, it's immigrants, it's immigrants. No, don't try to soften the language or try to lump the illegals in with all of these actual immigrants that are coming in the right way. Don't do that. Don't play in our face. You're supposed to be our elected officials. You're supposed to be actively championing for us, but you're dealing and pushing for stuff for people that are not American citizens that you're not supposed to be representing. They have their own government and their own people to represent them. You're supposed to represent us. If you're not representing us as Americans, then who's representing us? Please make it make sense. Hit the like button, hit the share button. It don't cost you nothing. Drop a comment, even if it's just an American flag in the comments. Every comment helps a lot. Be part of the solution. Join the conversation. Drop some comments. Drink water, stay hydrated. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is The Divide with Marcus C. Williams. We are here in your ear, having the conversations that you need to hear. We are on WRFZ 106.3 Rochester Free Radio. Let's get back into it. There's so much other stuff going on in our city right now. I could go on for days just about Rochester itself. And actually, honestly, I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start because there's just so much. I'd like to talk about how the news keeps changing stuff around, and when stuff doesn't serve the Democrats' purposes, they try to change the narrative. Remember a week or so ago now, I want to say it's a week, maybe a week and a half now, where they had those 3 Muslim teenagers go and shoot up all of Austin. They were running everybody and the police on a whole circle for 18 hours, and they shot up like 2 fire departments and all types of stuff like that. Can we talk about that? Oh, no, we can't talk about that because they found out that they were Muslims and you can't talk about that. Okay, so now that's out of the news. Or the issue with the trans people, the 2 trans people that shot up the people in San Diego because they were treating them badly. It was a mosque, right? So they immediately jumped to conclusions. They said, oh, it's the Christians. Oh, it's the Republicans shooting up the mosque. But no, it was two trans people that were a couple that shot those people at that mosque. It was like 2-3 people because they had been treating them badly. Oh, don't catch it and say that the Muslims have been treating trans people bad. You can't talk about that because Muslims must love trans people, right? The devil is a lie. Okay, so but we can't talk about that because that's too much like right. So that's out of the news too. Gone is the news. That was on the 18th that happened, and it's really frustrating to see how all of these cultivated narratives and things are pushed in the news and stuff like that. Now, back to the Texas one, because they were all essentially under 18, so they can't really name anybody or anything. But one of the guys' names, I can barely pronounce his name. It was like Nagada Diagani. Okay, clearly that's not an American name. You know what I'm saying? But again, these are these Muslims shooting up these American cities, so you can't say anything about that. And let me be very clear. Foreign Muslims, right? Not American Muslims, not the Nation of Islam, these foreign Muslims, okay? And that is a problem. And most of these Muslims that are these foreigners that are coming over here creating these problems are Saracens, right? But now you got all of these other Muslims that are like, oh, well, they're Muslims too, so we should stick up for them because they're Muslims, and if they're doing bad, we should stick up for them. You sound retarded, okay? If you're Muslim and they're acting bad, you need to stand up and say, no, don't do that. You understand what I'm saying? But none of the Muslims are coming out standing up against this nonsense that's happening in our country. None of them are coming out and standing up against the Islamification that's happening in our country because they see it as something that benefits them, okay, and their religion. But a lot of these people are Islamists, not regular people that are Muslims. You understand? And it's crazy to me because all of these foreign countries over there, Kuwait, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, okay, all of them warn us about taking in all of these foreign Muslims, and they say, oh, well, you know what's going to happen? Terrorism. Do we listen as a country? Absolutely not. So the Muslims that are foreigners that are telling us not to let in the Muslims that are foreigners. Make it make sense. But do we listen? No. I think the Muslims that are foreigners that are from the sand countries telling us not to let in the Muslims that are foreigners from sand countries know a little bit about the Muslims that are foreigners from sand countries because they're the same type of people. They've had to be dealing with them for generations. I'm pretty sure they know what they're talking about when they're telling us, don't let them in. It's going to cause problems. Look at what happened in Lebanon when they let the Palestinians in. Look at what happened in Jordan when they let the Palestinians in. They all tried to topple their governments. That's why Lebanon's jacked up right now. Lebanon used to be a Christian country, okay? Until they let in them Palestinians, and then it was a whole problem. Okay? Can we have these important, real, true conversations? No. No. And I put this out there because specifically, if you think about it and you look at it, we haven't had these issues with the Asian Muslims, right? Like I was talking to somebody else the other day and I was explaining to them, like, it's really just these Saracens from these sand desert countries that are the big problem. Okay. And some of the African Muslims too, because you know that a lot of them are in league with these ridiculous Boko Haram and the rest of them crazy groups over there. That's the type of Islam that they got over there. Okay. So when we look at it for what it is, and this is very important, we don't have that issue with the Asian Muslims. Why don't we have that? I was talking to somebody the other day. They said, I didn't even know that we had Muslims here from Asia. I said, see, and that's the point. That's exactly the point. Because they don't cause those type of problems. You understand? The Nation of Islam don't cause those type of problems in America. Those are American Muslims, right? They don't cause those type of problems here. So we got good Muslims here and these crazy foreign Muslims here, okay? And nobody in the groups of Muslims that see what's going on are standing up against these Muslims. Make it make sense. I see some crazy Christians acting crazy. I'm up against them first thing in the morning, okay, early. I be at them anyway. Like I don't like a lot of this heresy that I see going on in the Christian church, and I'm on it all the time. And it's not just me; it's a lot of other ones. And I'm very glad to see a lot of the people in the Catholic Church standing up against this fake heretic pope that we got right now going on. But see, that just shows that people are willing to stand up, that are Christians. But where are the Muslims standing up against the bad Muslims? Nowhere to be found. Drink water, stay hydrated. Hit that like button and hit the share button. Help get the message out there. Now, we had a very large chemical spill happen in California the other day, and it barely got any coverage in the news. I think they evacuated like 40,000 people. It might have even been up to 70,000 people. I believe it was up to 70,000 people were affected, but 40,000 people were pushed to evacuate. And that's kind of crazy. That's really, 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 really crazy. That's a lot of people. Oh, I just got a notification that there's a whole nother industrial fire that's going on in California right now. I don't have time to look into that, but that is crazy. It's a lot of industrial things are catching on fire, and chemical spills and all types of crazy stuff seems to be happening lately, right? But we don't talk about that because, let's push it away. It's very interesting when we think about what's happening in our nation now from a worldwide standpoint, that a lot of what's been pushed with all of this, letting all these foreigners in and stuff like that, it comes from the United Nations. It comes from these elite that are actively acting against the best interests of the American people to promote globalism. You ask yourself, why are they pushing all of this socialism? Why are they pushing all this communism, all of this crazy neo-Marxist? Why is that being pushed? Why? Because it focuses on centralized government that is multinational and the erasing of all borders. So it's something that we really need to have a true conversation about. And all of this is being pushed by people like George Soros, his son, I forget his son's name now. He's really taken over for him. And Carl Schwab and the rest of these people, all members of the World Economic Forum and all types of stuff. A lot of the other ones, the Bilderbergs and all of them, and it's a serious problem. Why is this being pushed? Because they're trying to push us to one global order. And it's a serious issue. And, at the top of the pyramid, they're all in it together. They're all super ultra wealthy elites, ultra powerful elites. Remember, power doesn't always mean money. That's something that you need to know. A lot of it is about bloodlines and familial ties and stuff like that. That's a much larger conversation for a whole nother episode. But hit the like button, hit the share button. It don't cost you nothing. Drop a comment. I'll try to pop some of these comments up on the screen here. Okay. Be part of the conversation. Let's see. Okay. Oh, look, we finally got the kick comments working. All right. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or wherever else, you pop your comment down there and we'll pop some of those up too. So as we have this conversation about how all of this push for immigration is going into all these countries, like that's what the problem is. It's being pushed by the elites because they don't care. They know if they dissolve the heritage and the cultures of different nation, it destabilizes it enough so that it segments the populace into different small groups that they're easier to control that way. Because if you don't know your own identity, then you're easier to control. This is basic. What do you call it now? What's the sociology? Psychology? Like it's really basic science of manipulation. And that's what's being done to us intentionally. Then you've got a whole bunch of other things that are being pushed that's really globalist anyway also. Why do you think that so many of these judicial candidates and all of these different DAs have all of this outside funding from many places to promote stuff that really is deleterious to the protection of that? That's bad. It's deleterious is bad stuff, right? That's really deleterious and tearing down the society and the structure of society, allowing criminals to run wild. Why are they being funded by people that are far afield in other countries and giant mega corporations that are nonprofits on scale? Why is that okay? Why is that okay? Explain it to me like I'm five. It's not okay. And we need to understand what is really, really going on. And if we get enough time in a little while, I want to talk about some of the policies from the UN that the US has said, no, we're moving away from underneath this current administration. I'm glad, I'm really glad at watching this administration push away from globalism. There should not be any globalism. Borders matter, countries matter, and our rights, liberties, and freedoms matter. Our culture matters. Our united heritage as a nation matters. And this is a sad thing that I see far too often, where they try to pit Black Americans against white Americans. And I really have to start to ask people, well, what is a Black American, right? What is a white American? Because up until a couple of years ago, really the 50s, there weren't any white Americans except the what do you call them? The WASP, the white American Anglo-Saxon people, like that's it. White Protestant Anglo-Saxon, like those used to be white people. But then all of a sudden the Irish were white too, but the Irish didn't used to be white, right? Then all of a sudden the Italians were white, but the Italians didn't used to be white. You know what I'm saying? Like, so how and when exactly did that happen? Like, I'm fortunate enough to live in an area where we have people that are very proud of their heritage. And, we've even got the Sicilians and the Italians, and they'll tell you, I'm Italian, I'm Sicilian, and they don't even, and they're distinct groups in and of themselves. But this whole concept have pushed all of the people away to be like, oh, well, we're just white, destroying and eliminating their heritage. Again, this is exactly what we were just talking about a second ago. And then we have to ask, oh, well, so what is a Black American now, right? Well, they've got all of these talking heads on all of these different TV stations, CNN, NBC, all of these other stations that look melanated, that look like this, okay, that look melanated, but they're not Black Americans. And then they're supposed to be representing us on TV. And, the old adage is true. They say that all Black people look alike because whenever somebody sees somebody that's melanated, they just assume that they're Black American. Them people don't represent us. Them people are out here pushing things for illegal aliens and all types of other crazy stuff, alphabetism, killing our babies and all types of other nonsense that don't got nothing to do with Black Americans. Okay. And we need to have that conversation. Okay. I need you to understand, okay, if you're not Black and you're watching this, that a lot of these people on these TVs and on these internet things that look like this, that are melanated, are not Black Americans, and they do not represent us. Like that crazy guy that was masquerading as a new Black Panther Party in Philadelphia or whatever the case is. He wasn't Black at all. Okay, he's something Spanish and foreign. Okay. Or we got all these, what's that crazy lady's name with the short blonde hair to be on CNN and stuff? Oh, I'm not able to remember her name. She's foreign. Okay, she's not Black American. She don't represent my people. Okay, we got the other one, Amanda Seals. Okay, she's not Black American. She don't represent our people. We got the Black caucus in Congress and in New York State, both of them, and they got a whole bunch of foreigners in there. Okay, that aren't Black American. And then we wonder why Black American issues don't get addressed. And this is important because, again, what is Black if all of these people all of a sudden are Black, right? But they're only Black when it's convenient, but they want all of their culture stuff, at their different African nation stuff, Gambia, Liberia, whatever the case is. Liberia is really part of America. That's a whole nother conversation. Liberia, Sierra Leone, Gabon, all of that stuff. They want all of their holidays. The Jamaicans want their holidays. They want this, they want that. The Caribbeans, the rest of the Caribbeans, they want all their own stuff. But they Black when it's convenient. When they got their hand out and they want something, it's okay for them to be considered Black, but they be real quick, okay, to tell you that they're not Black. This is the issue and this is the problem, okay? And we need to have these serious and important conversations, but people don't want to have them. Black Americans do not want all of these foreigners. You understand? That's a very small subclass that's pushing that on us because we as Black Americans see that, look at whose neighborhoods they're being pushed into. Look at New York City. Look at Chicago. Look at my neighborhood. Where are these illegal aliens being pushed? Into our neighborhoods, displacing us in our own neighborhoods. We had this big thing against gentrification and all of this nonsense for years. Okay. Now all of a sudden it's gentrification by illegal aliens and don't nobody want to talk about it. Okay. That's a serious issue. Now, you might remember that years ago and decades ago, they used to have people and they try to mock them like they're all countries, right? Like they're all country. And they'd be like, they took our jobs, right? They took our jobs. Well, they did take our jobs. They did take our jobs. Not only did under Clinton and Biden, they ship away a lot of our jobs. Okay, NAFTA was a big thing with Clinton, and they shipped away a lot of our jobs. They also allowed all of these foreigners to start coming into our nation, taking our jobs in America, the low-skilled jobs, the everyman's job that anybody can get, even if they didn't graduate high school. And that's very important to have a conversation about, but nobody wants to have that conversation. And they want to talk about you. Oh, well, you're xenophobic. Oh, well, you don't like these people. You don't like those people. Oh, and they'll try to say, oh, you hate these people. Nobody hate nobody. That's like a lot of energy to give somebody else. Oh, nobody got no energy to be hating nobody. You understand what I'm saying? But what I do recognize is the economic reality that is going on in our country, and that the more competition in the job market, that means that there are going to be less of our American citizens that are able to get those jobs. Okay. And people will say, oh, well, you should be able to compete with them for basic entry level jobs. Why? Why am I creating unnecessary competition for myself? If there is a water tower, right? If there's a water thing, it dispenses water, right? Why should I have to fight through 15 other people that ain't got no business being where the water is, okay, to get some water for myself? Why I got to fight all these extra people for the basic things that we should be able to get? You understand? The more competitive an environment, the more people that end up losing out. It's simple, basic economics. Like, it's crazy. It's simple statistics, right? Like if you're playing in a baseball game or whatever the case is, and you're playing in a series, you've got, let's call it, 20 teams, right? Okay. That means that you got a 1 in 20 chance, roughly, different statistics, better teams play better, whatever the case is. But you've got, a 1 in 20 chance of winning, right? Now you got 150 teams versus just 20 teams. Your likelihood of winning goes down dramatically. Also, you're more likely to tire yourself out if you've got to consistently compete with all of these other groups now. It's not a level playing field. And none of us are going to their countries talking about, oh, give us free stuff. Oh, give us jobs. That is not happening in their country. They come here and they want better for themselves. They're not coming here to look out for you, me, or anybody else. And I'm not mad. But we as Americans should not be enabling them to do that. I do want to get back to Bolivia real quick, because we were talking about Bolivia, and Bolivia is really going through it right now. The president did get replaced recently. I was right about that. So their president, Rodrigo Paz, was in office. He's only been there 6 months. Okay. And the protests have gone all the way up. It's a raw riot down there. They're working with roadblocks. It's costing them $50 million a day in losses to their economy. And they're being told that they're using unconstitutional force, and the regime is very restrictive and stuff like that. I don't know Bolivia's constitution. You know what I'm saying? I can't say. But if you look at places like, El Salvador, where they just completely got rid of their constitution, and now they have a complete dictator down there who apparently is doing a really good job. You know what I'm saying? An altruistic dictator, that's the whole concept, that there aren't any altruistic dictators, but apparently he's an altruistic dictator. I don't know that I buy that, because I'm all about America and the American Constitution. Let them people down there do their own thing. Okay. But in Bolivia, it's a whole bunch of craziness going down there. And the government itself is what we would in America consider like a center rightish government, but the leftists are attacking it, trying to tear it down. And all of this is being funded by the Chinese because the Chinese have been all up in Bolivia and Peru. If you go look up what happened in Peru, Peru has been through like three presidents in the last 12 months. It's crazy because they were all in bed with China. And that's another serious conversation of why the president and the current administration right now is working to change what's going on in the Southern Hemisphere because it's part of our nation, our nation's backyard right here. And China's all involved up and down there. So who's funding these pushes against the government in Bolivia? It's the leftists. It's a destabilization tactic that's being pushed by China. And we need to understand that. I'm also interested in seeing what happens in Panama because apparently, allegedly, and I don't have enough information on this yet, but allegedly we're militarizing Panama. I don't believe it. But if it's to kick the rest of the Chinese out there, absolutely do it. I don't know why Panama wasn't part of the United States to begin with. That's a whole nother conversation. We let our vassal state go and we should have never done that. Also, while we're talking about pieces of real estate and countries and peoples, they should be part of the United States. Cuba, I hope you're coming home soon. Cuba used to be part of the United States, if you aren't familiar with that. Also, the Philippines, we need to apologize to the Philippines and incorporate them back in the U.S. and let them be a state if they want to, or just be a territory where they can do what they want. Because Philippines also used to be part of America. We kind of did them dirty when we had them, so that's on us. Okay, so we need them back. Come back home, baby. But that also leads us into what's going on in that area of the ocean over there. Like all of the Pacific is the U.S.'s backyard. Like we've got a ton of different islands out there. Hawaii is the midway point for the American empire, right? Like for the people don't realize that. We've got other territories out there that are right over there. What's it? CNA. We've got Guam. We've got a bunch of other little territories that nobody really knows about over there. You got to go look them up. That's how small they are. But it's important for us to know that whatever China's doing in the area over there in the Pacific, in these little island chains and stuff like that, impacts and affects us. So more so stuff that's happening in Bolivia with these leftists trying to overthrow the government there. You know, China's funding that. With what, like how the Chinese took over the Panama Canal because Biden decided to, who was it? Was it Biden? It was, I think it was Biden. It might have been Biden. I'm pretty sure, I'm like 96% sure it was Biden. It might have been Obama. I can't remember. I'm messing up my timetable right now. It might have been Obama that gave Panama back the Panama Canal. I think it was Obama now that I'm thinking about it, trying to get my years straight. But it doesn't matter. The Democrats gave them back the Panama Canal, which we built, which we had tens of thousands of people die building. You know what I'm saying? Stupid stuff. I'm gonna look up who gave gave that back right now because it's bothering me. Who gave the Panama Canal back to Panama? 1999. Okay. Yeah. All right. Officially, this started was it under Carter that it started? Okay, yeah, it started under Carter. Damn, Carter. I'm sorry, y'all. I got issues with Carter. Carter's done a lot of stuff. It always seems like his name or Lyndon B. Johnson's name pop up somehow when we have any long-term issue in politics nowadays. I don't know how it happens, you know, but it just seems like they've done so much damage that we can't even really measure it, you know, and that's where we are right now. And here's my issue. What we're seeing right now is a complete reawakening in our nation. And people call it the Monroe Doctrine or the new Dunroe Doctrine under Trump. And it's good for us. It's good for us as a nation. And I think that what people don't understand is that we're a nation. We have interests. And what's good for our nation is good for us as a people. Like, I mean, no offense, I don't care what's going on in Botswana, right? If we're going to do something over there, is it going to help us as American citizens? If not, I don't want no part in it. So what's going on in the South and Central America right now is good for America. So it's really good for America. The whole thing with Maduro and Venezuela, it's good for us. The whole thing with Cuba, it's good for us. Okay, because China and Russia have a multitude of spy bases and listening bases right there on Cuba. Good, shut it down. The next domino that needs to fall is Jamaica. Ask a Jamaican how the Chinese have taken over Jamaica. Ask a Jamaican about that. They got their own toll roads and everything. It's crazy how China has taken over Jamaica. Which, interesting fun fact that you probably don't know about is that under the Obama administration, Obama tried to buy Jamaica, which is crazy to me because I never knew that. If I had knew that, I would have been like, yeah, do that, Obama. I didn't like Obama very much, but if I would have known that he was trying to do that, I'd have been the biggest champion of that. So it's kind of interesting how clearly even other presidents have identified that China's issues in right here in our hemisphere are really impacting us strategically long term. And we got to kick China out of Mexico too, but that's going to be a little bit of a bigger issue. And it's coming. It's coming. I want to jump back into what's going on here in Rochester for a second, where I live, because these people crazy. Okay. The school board just passed a budget for $1.16 billion. Okay. And they're talking about, oh, well, it has cuts and stuff to many different positions and stuff like that. And one of the positions was social workers. And one of the positions was, I want to say, what was the other one? It was it's like psychologists or something. And I'm like, those positions have nothing to do with education, not anything at all. And social work or psychologist, whatever the case is, that's either state or that's the county government that's to deal with that, not the school budget. Our kids can't read and write. There's no discipline in the schools. You're talking about some people that have no business but doing anything to pry into the lives of the students. I don't need that to be paid from our educational money when the kids can't read and can't write and can't do basic math. If you're going to tell me that the third graders can't write, can't read, and can't do math, I need that money that's for these other people that really should not be in the schools to begin with. Okay. But if were to be done, should be done by the state or or by the county, I need that money to be allocated to reading, writing, and arithmetic. You're going to tell me that the third graders can't read, can't write, can't do math. Then you got the high schoolers, the people that are graduating are functionally illiterate. And again, we're a deep blue city in a deep blue state. The Democrats run it. They've run the school district completely for 54 years. No Republican on any of those seats for the school board. So what's going on? In the last, I don't know, what are we? Let's say since, if we go back 20, 30 years, we've had about as many people that are the head of the schools, right? We've gone through about 15 of them. That's like, they don't even have like a term of 2 years for the superintendent. It's disgusting. It makes you want to spit. And it's a serious problem. Why? Because of the way that the policies and the legislation and the allocations are going in our area. Who's it being done by? Well, this is all under the laws and legislation and budgetary priorities of the Democrats, right? And people say, oh, don't talk bad about the Democrats. What about the Republicans? I wish there was one Republican that's in charge of any of that or has any responsibility to do with any of that, but there isn't. There isn't. So all we can do is put the people that are in those offices and that have been in those offices for 54 years and hold them accountable. You want to make it like, oh, well, it's a teamified issue. Maybe it is a teamified issue. Maybe the Democrats for 54 years have completely failed our city continuously over and over and over again. And maybe the Democrats, if you're a registered Democrat and you live here, you need to hold your own party accountable. How about that? Because the nameplate in the office might change, but the party still owns that office. 54 years. The Democrats have run all of the school board seats, all of the city council seats, every mayor position, and all of the city court judges. The crime is out of control. The kids got no education. There ain't no real type of jobs, okay? And there's no real good economic outlook if you're from the city and you're a middle class or you're from poverty. There's nothing here for you. Nothing. And then they got the nerve to build up all of these high-cost housing developments downtown, talking about, oh, look at what we're doing. Then they talking about, oh, we're building affordable housing. It's going to cost $450,000 for a one-bedroom unit. What? Who's retarded? Who's stupid? Who's putting these monies and plans together? Oh, wait, it's the Democrat Party, not the Republicans. Again, I wish there was a Republican to put the responsibility on, the onus on, the accountability on, but none of them are in any positions of power here, nor have they been for 54 years. So if you want to say, oh, well, it's about teams and you're just saying that because you're a Republican, I am not. And you need to hold your own people accountable, but you're not holding Democrats accountable, and you're a registered Democrat and you want to talk about the Republicans, you need to hold your own people accountable for what they're doing to our city and destroying our children's future and destroying the economic outlook for us, for homeowners, for property owners, for businesses, okay? And the continued deterioration of the general quality of life because y'all let the criminals run a gosh darn muck. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And this is something that we need to have a question about. We need to have a serious question about if the Democrats are in power, who's holding Democrats accountable? Shouldn't it be Democrats holding other Democrats accountable? Absolutely. Absolutely, because that's your party. But they'll rather say nothing to hold any of them accountable. And I put it out there like we were talking about the crime and the violence and all the craziness that's going on in the bill reform and the raise the age laws in New York State. We talk about that. Okay, so who runs the assembly? The Democrats run the assembly. They got a supermajority. They have for over 30 years. Okay. Who runs the state Senate? The Democrats have a majority in the Senate. They've had the state Senate for over 20 something years. Who runs the governor's office? Oh, the Democrats have had that for almost 20 years. You understand what I'm saying? So there is this continued issue with the Democrats not holding other Democrats accountable, while the qualities of life, education, and economic outlook continue to deteriorate for the majority of the people in our area and our region especially. But also, since our area is highly registered Democrat, you have to start asking yourself, well, if all of the people here are Democrats and the Democrats that are in office are destroying the quality of life of the Democrats, why aren't those other Democrats that are average citizens holding them accountable? Because they've been told to be distracted by Orange Man bad. Because it's the president's fault that the schools are broken. It's the president's fault that the crime is going on. It's the president's fault that they're curbing food stamps for illegal aliens. You know, somebody had a gosh darn nerve. I wanted to slap the taste out their mouth and back to the front of it. Okay, talking about, oh, well, they're cutting 4,000 people off of food stamps. Now, mind you, food stamps is a Republican program. The Republicans started food stamps. Somebody talk about that for a moment, okay? The Republican Party started food stamps. Yeah. SNAP, that's a Republican thing. Okay. So, and it's also tied to the farm bill. So there's a lot going on there that people should be thankful to the Republicans for that to begin with. But they're like, oh, well, they're cutting all of these people, 4,000 people off of SNAP benefits. Why is that? Because there's a hellified amount of corruption and misappropriation going on with SNAP benefits in New York State. And nobody wants to talk about it. The federal government asked for the records in relation to the SNAP and the qualifications, and New York State told them, no, we're not giving it to you. Well, why aren't you giving it to them, right? They're funding you for it. Why aren't you giving it to them? And they said, no, we won't give it to them. Now, SNAP is largely a federal program. So SNAP, so the federal government said, you know what? You've got over, I believe the threshold is something like 10 or 15% or whatever the case is of the threshold of fraud or misapplied applications of SNAP, and then the federal government will limit the amount that you get. So our rate was like 20% misapplied SNAP payments going to people that either shouldn't get it or just don't even exist. 20%. But can we talk about that? And the federal government was like, okay, we see that you got issues with that. Let us see the records so we can see what's going on. They said, no, you can't see the records. Federal government's like, what do you mean we can't see the records? We're the ones who give you the money. And they're like, no, you can't see the records. And the federal government's like, okay, then we're going to cut the amount of SNAP benefits that we give you from covering it 100% to covering it like 80%. And you're going to have to come up with that difference of 20%, which is roughly the amount of misapplied SNAP disbursements that you've been giving out. And the Democrats went wild. Oh my God, they're trying to take people's stuff. How about you just actually clean up the fraud and stuff that's going on in the state? Like, you don't even have a little fraud. You got like 20% fraud. Like, what the heavens is going on there? Like, how is that a thing? And then you don't want nobody looking at it. You don't want the people that are giving you the money to look at where you're putting the money. Make it make sense to me. And again, these are all Democrats. And the guy was like, yeah, they're taking 4,000 people. They're kicking off a SNAP. Who? What 4,000 people? Because I saw the new regulations that they're doing. If you're in school, you don't have to do the 20 hours of community service a month, 20 hours a month of community service. Or is it 20 hours a week now? 20 hours a week of community service. You don't have to do that if you're in school. Okay. And then it's only community service. So you can work at your church, you can do whatever else. And then there are all of these carve outs for people that if you have a disability, if you can't do this, if you got this, if you got that. And we already know everybody in New York State got some sort of mental disorder or they on medication for this or for that. So they're going to already qualify not to have to do it anyway. So what even is going on? You understand what I'm saying? So you're perpetrating a fraud, trying to talk about something that's not even realistic. Okay. Oh, the 4,000 people that are getting kicked off. Oh, wait, most of those people are illegal aliens. Oh, no, that's not true. Well, Chuck Schumer and Kathy Hochul, the governor, and our senator got up on the TV in separate press conferences, and both of them said the Republicans are trying to cut off illegal aliens off of SNAP. Okay, but they said immigrants, but they didn't mean immigrants, lawful immigrants or refugees. They meant illegal aliens. Okay, so we need to clean up that falsified language, right? So, but you were telling me this whole time for the last couple of years that illegal aliens, okay, weren't getting social services. They weren't getting SNAP benefits. They weren't getting this. They weren't getting that. Now you're on TV saying, oh, the Republicans are cutting that for illegal aliens. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Hit that like button, hit the share button. It don't cost you nothing. Okay, drop a little comment that helps the algorithm. Be part of the conversation, okay? And hit the subscribe button or the follow button, depending on where you're at, what platform you're watching us on. Now, as we tie everything in here together, what we've got is a continued attack on our urban centers, right? A lot of our urban centers are run by Democrats. And all we see is a continued deterioration. Baltimore, Chicago. Baltimore is getting a little bit better, but there's also been a lot of gentrification in Baltimore. I wonder why. I wonder who's been in control of that city for like 50 years. I think they're 48. We're more than them, but I think they're like 48 years there. But double check that number. But for decades, look at Chicago, right? And these are conversations that we can't have because people want to say, oh, well, it's about team. Man, miss me with that. Miss me with that. It's very, very concerning that we see the continued deterioration of what's going on in our nation, in our urban centers, and nobody's speaking up about it. Why is that? Can we ask that question? Why are the Democrats not holding other Democrats accountable? And it bothers me so bad to watch what's going on. You have to ask yourself, is a bigger plan? Is there a bigger plan? And yes, you guys, it is a bigger plan. And I'd encourage you to go look up 15-minute cities, to go look up the, what is it called? The Cities for Action. Okay, go look those two things up. 15-minute cities and Cities for Action. If you're not familiar, okay, there's also the New American Council you can go look up. All of these crazy things are all part of the bigger plan from the UN to create more control over us. It's also their whole push at the UN to get rid of anything that has to do with firearms. That's why they've been pushing all of the firearms companies out of business in our country, especially in blue states like New York State and even Colorado, right? Colorado used to be deep red. A lot of manufacturing for firearms and ammunition and stuff there. Everybody's leaving. New York State, same situation. And it's a serious problem. And it's a threat to our rights and our liberties, because we know once they get to a point where they get a lot of the firearms gone, they're going to come for us. Look at Canada. They wanted everybody to willfully give up their firearms in Canada. And the Canadians were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not turning them in, or whatever the case is. Now they're talking about they're going to go house to house and take people's firearms. Are you serious? What type of authoritarian, totalitarian stuff is going on up there? And if it's happening in Canada, it'll happen here. That's everything, all roadmaps that happen in Canada happen in New York State or California not too long from that time. So we need to be very vigilant on what's going on. Like, for instance, you've got the medically aided induced death going on in Canada, and now they're opening that up to teenagers, that they say that if they have any type of mental disorder, or if they're feeling depressed, or if they have any social anxiety, that if they're teenagers, that then they'll be able to get medically aided induced death. Okay, what do you mean? That's like every teenager, every human that's been a teenager ever has experienced those type of feelings and thoughts. Like, why would you say that? What would you do that for? And then you look at New York State. What did New York State do? Talking about, oh, we're doing compassionate care for the elders, so the elders can just kill themselves and stuff like that. Why would you ever suggest that our elders kill themselves? Well, the elders are in poverty and they've got poor quality of life. So wait, you're saying because they're in poverty, they should kill themselves? Well, yeah, they shouldn't have to suffer in poverty. I said, wait a second, I've heard this before. This is the same excuse that you use for people in poverty getting rid of their children. You try to tell them to kill off their babies because they're in poverty and nobody should be raised in poverty. I've heard that story before. Okay, look at this. This is nothing but control. Okay, this is nothing but population control. It's nothing but constraining their ability to minimize the population, because less people are easier to control. This is what the whole plan is. Now they're going after our elders here. Elder side, that's all that it is. And they're trying to tell you that it's compassionate. And people will argue, well, you don't know about how people struggle in their end of life. Listen, my grandfather died from multiple organ failure and dementia. Don't tell me about I don't know people struggle and stuff like that. Don't even play in my face like that. Okay, don't do that. And my grandfather was a veteran. God rest his soul. Okay, and this is a stupid conversation that these people have going on, and they're like, oh, well, this and that. You don't see what these people are doing because you can't conceptualize the evil and the vileness that actually exists in the world. All of these people run around talking about things like the Epstein files, and pedophilia and stuff like this. What are you even talking about? In the Epstein files, it said that they were eating babies. Eating babies. In the Epstein files, they said they were eating babies. I have not seen the outrage over them eating babies yet. Where is the outrage over them eating babies? Eating babies, drinking the blood of children. This we already knew was happening, but it came out in the Epstein files and nobody is up in arms about that. Make it make sense. Just the sheer volume of evil that actually truly exists right now that we know about, and people are like, oh, ho hum, and they don't care. They don't talk about it. They don't do anything about it. They don't care. But then they try to say, oh, well, Trump is a pedophile. Blah, blah, blah. Eating babies. They are eating babies. Okay? You have no evidence, nothing that would ever make you think that Trump is a pedophile, right? First, you try to tell me, oh, well, Trump is he's sexually assaulted people and stuff like that. Turns out that all the accusers that tried to go after him were lying, right? Okay, maybe he's an adulterous, dirty dog. Okay, now you're selling me something I could believe, right? But he's very clearly got a very specific type. And you mean to tell me that this ugly, hideous woman, who's always kind of been ugly and hideous, okay, is somebody that he messed with? Then she got on the TV. What's her name? E. Jean Carroll. Okay, got on the TV with Anderson Cooper. You guys got to watch that Anderson Cooper interview with her. Okay, she is a sexual predator. I was very concerned about him when she was on there, and I'm like, this is a gay man, and I'm concerned about him. You understand what I'm saying? She looked like she was about to jump him and ravish him on national TV. Okay. So, but then she said, oh yeah, no, Trump never actually did it, but in my mind he did. In your mind, you psychotic individual. I had some other words, but we're on the radio. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, but this is the concept, right? That we're pushed to think all of these things over and over and over and over again when they are eating children, eating babies, and drinking the blood of children, and nobody's calling for a bigger investigation about that. Now we know, and I only got a short time left, so hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It don't cost you nothing. Definitely hit that the follow button and the share button too, okay? Or drop a little comment in the comments because that helps the algorithm. But what we know is that they're out here eating children, right? And that's not a big thing. We know that there are baby mills like the Chinese have, where they're trying to have these people have all these babies so that they can get citizenship, so that they can work to usurp our government from the inside. We know that that is happening. We know that there are a bunch of people that are having babies off the books so that they can have those children and sell them into things like sex slavery and cannibalism and all of these other things. We know this to be true. This is not a fiction. We know this. There have been massive investigations into this type of things. You know, you got the Tim Tebow Foundation. People want to talk about pedophilia. Tim Tebow's always talking about the child abuse and sexual assault and stuff like that. And he's got this map. If you ever see this map, he's got this huge map of America. And it shows all of the places where child sex images are appearing and all the IPs and all of this type of stuff. How is that even being shared in that level of quantity? You just look at the map. Tens of thousands, at least. And you're telling me that, oh, well, this, oh, well, that. No, oh, well, this is here. We know about it. Why are we not doing anything about it? I saw an interview with Tim Tebow. They were like, well, why isn't anybody doing anything about it? And he's like, you know what? We're trying. We're trying. But it's hard because people don't want to believe that the stuff that is happening, that we know that is happening, is actually happening. And it's scary. It's scary because, like, that is a very serious thing, thinking that they're eating children and they're drinking the blood of children. And we know that, right? That's not even the same thing as the children that they're growing. These children, they're having these people have these babies and then they use them as blood bags. You understand what I'm saying? They keep them in these anesthetized states so that they can just use them for their blood. That is another thing that is a big thing. And when people start to realize that one of the largest exports in our nation, that is also often in the top 5 exports from the US, is blood, then maybe we can have a real conversation. But does anybody want to have that conversation? Why is one of our largest exports in the US human blood? Where is that human blood coming from? How can you have that much blood being just going out to the world? And especially when you hear the Red Cross, we're short on blood. How? How are you short on blood if that's one of the most major exports that we have in our country? Who's this blood going to? Where's the blood coming from? What's going on? You understand what I'm saying? But it's until we ask these real questions that it's just going to be out there, you know, stuff that we know that is going on. But stuff that we don't talk about, that nobody does anything about because we're not actually talking about the things that matter, like these people eating babies and drinking their blood. I want the investigation into that. I want all of the names for that. Because, I mean, I'm not saying that people should get a club upside the head, but if there was ever anybody to get a club upside the head, I mean, eating babies, you know, to me, that means that that's a capital punishment is well needed there. Okay. So in closing, and I think that this is very important, hit the like button, hit the share button. It don't cost you nothing, and drop a comment. Okay. Help the algorithm and hit follow and subscribe. But I think that this is very important because we too often get distracted by the presidential level. And we forget that the local level is where we can make the difference. They try to tell us that all of the issues are because Orange Man bad or because of the Republicans or whatever the case is, when the fact of the matter is the people that impact you the most are the ones on the local level of government. in your municipality, in your county, and on your state level. Those are the people that need the accountability. They always tell you to take your eye off of them and look at the president. Understand that every time that they're doing that, that is a grand distraction and it is intentional. And they're telling you to do that because they don't want any accountability, because they don't want you to actually vote them out of office, because they don't want you to actually vote another way. Because what do they say? If you knew better, you would do better. And that's why they keep you distracted with things that you can't change, that you can't do nothing about, that don't really affect or impact you. That's the trick and the flim flam. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit the share, hit the subscribe, get this out there, drop some comments. We'll be back next Monday, 2:30 to 4 p.m. This is The Divide with Marcus C. Williams. Thank you for tuning in. And if you're not on our YouTube channel, it's the Marcus C. Williams YouTube channel. The Marcus C. Williams YouTube channel. Subscribe there, and we'll catch you guys later. Remember, stand up, speak up, and don't shut up. Take action. Be blessed and be well.